How y'all are? This is Moon Griffon. Great to have you with us on the Moon Griffon podcast as we try to grow our podcast. We'll program heard 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. You can go to moongriffon.com, moongriffon.com. Check us out. We'd love to have you. Today, we're honored to have Mr. Tony Kinnett. I hope I'm saying, said Winnett Kinnett. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Tony Kinnett, of course, investigative columnist for the Daily Signal. He also is a former science major and someone that's been around and watched science for a long time. Hey, Tony, real quick, give a little background of yourself, and that'll take us into what I want to talk about today, was dealing with all this gender crazy that I'm watching right now. So a little background of yourself.
You got it. I was a science teacher and director in Indiana and Wisconsin. I taught at the school they shot the movie Hoosiers at. I taught biology later on in Indianapolis. And then I finished out my public education career being the director of the largest, the science section of the largest public school system in the state. And a couple awards in and there, and I loved teaching. But I've really hated how a lot of the science has been perverted for political purposes these days.
Yeah, I would love to get into you on the climate science, but we're going to leave that on the side today because I don't think science is always, I get it, it's always something happening. But I don't think the biology science has changed any since God created man and woman. And all of a sudden, in America, we now don't know what a boy and a girl is. You can be a boy, you can be a girl, they're transing. And I'll be honest with you, this is kind of freaked me out that we've gone as far as we've gone with science, with natural science, with natural biology of a man and a woman. And this thing now is being literally thrown down American people's throat. Unfortunately, some people are buying it, and some people with their own kids are buying this.
Well, and that's really the scary part here, because a lot of individuals who sat through the same biology classes, the same anatomy and physiology classes in college and in high school are now working as pediatricians, as counselors, as psychologists, psychiatrists, and they're throwing out the basic principles that we all know and understand of every species on the face of this earth. And as you said, God created man and female, and now we're perverting it in order to score political points, I guess. There actually isn't an end goal here that is discernible. Nothing here is actually going to benefit the individuals that we're lying to. It's quite a very weird way, an insane way, perhaps, to view science and medicine.
Yeah, that's the point. If you look at it, I tell people from a God side, okay, he made man and woman. It's a natural process. But let's say you don't believe in God. Well, look at the science part of it. He made man and woman. And the funny thing, I say nothing's funny about this really, but the sad thing about this is we're trying to get to these kids and teach them that you can become anything you want to become. That's fine, but not when it comes to sex. And we're really drilling this. Some people are drilling this in the heads of these kids. My question is, where does parents get this from? Parents that had babies. I mean, look, I've had 4 kids. I've had 4 grandbabies. We knew the sex of the babies at about the 10 to 12 week mark. We knew what they were going to be. And guess what? They were. How do we get to these kids and tell them, look, what you're being taught is absolutely wrong?
Well, there's a lot of individuals that will trust anything that you tell them as long as you have a couple of letters and a period in front of your name. And that's very disappointing, because really one of the things that American citizens were supposed to do at its founding, Ben Franklin said, you have a republic if you can keep it. Yep. It requires citizens to be learned and vigilant and actually check their sources. And to go back to your earlier example about God's creation, also in the New Testament, Paul praised the Bereans for checking his sources while he was up there preaching. They checked and saw if what he said was correct. We're supposed to be circumspect individuals. Yet a lot of parents have either become so enamored with a lot of the stuff that's coming out from all of the quote unquote experts that they're tossing what they know to be true aside in order to, in some cases, it scores some political points and affirmation. For some parents, it's because they're scared not to. And for other parents, it's because they have decided to use their kids as almost a political prop. And it's really just, it's horrendous.
Yeah, I've read, by the way, Tony Kinnett is my special guest. He is an investigative columnist with the Daily Signal. If you hadn't checked that out, you need to. Great information. He's also former science teacher and a major and somebody that's investigated this left and right. Tony, when you look at the big picture of this, if we don't push back now, and look, I don't know what pushback looks like. In other words, if we don't push back, and I'm starting to see some people do, at least the beer drinkers got it. Let me say that. The beer drinkers understand. What's going to be the result of this? Because you said they don't even know where they're going with this. But we do know the truth. So what's the final result in this? It's just total mass chaos in the United States of America and in the world when we can't tell a difference between a man and a woman now?
Well, we've seen several points throughout history that whenever a society starts to sacrifice basic understood truths and common values for short-term feel-good affirmations, or as the Bible would put it, pleasure for a season, destabilization occurs. We saw this in Egypt. We saw this in Assyria. We saw this in Greece. We saw this in Rome, on and on throughout the kingdoms of man. Whenever a society starts to toss aside what is true for what is comfortable, convenient, sounds good, which is why a lot of individuals are buying into this ideology, you're right. There is an element of chaos that eventually comes to bear. And we're starting to see this with some of the infighting that occurs in some of the teachers' unions on the left, who can't decide who's more oppressed, who can't decide, who needs to check their privilege. And it's causing a mess.
Yet, the other big problem we have, too, besides trying to get to the kids, is corporate America. Here's my question. Now, you're an investigative reporter, and I think you can answer this. I think I can, too, but I want you to answer it. Why is corporate America buying into this? Why is corporate America buying into it and almost forcing people to accept this? Because they have. Now when I say that, it's not every company. It's not all of corporate America, but there's enough of them to get you concerned. And is it a blackmail scheme? Is it the federal government? Because the Biden administration is all sold out on this. So what is this? Is this strictly a money move? It's not working out for the beer people, by the way, some of the beer people. So I'm just kind of curious.
So from what we can tell based on a lot of the data in the 2010s, a lot of corporations started to hire equity officers and inclusion staff, people that graduated from colleges, didn't have the skills to roll a desk chair across the floor, but they studied race and sex and all of these insane, crazy theories regarding them. And the corporations hired them. And ever so slightly, there would just be this little coughing voice at the back of the boardroom that would be like, actually, we need to be more. And then they would, fill whatever it was for today, which is why every June you have companies that come out to virtue signal for Pride Month or whatever. And the reason that they do this is because they want to look like a modern, fresh, new company that the next generation coming, it was millennials, now it's Generation Z, someday it will be Generation I Alpha. They want to appeal to them because that's in a corporation's quote unquote long-term interest. The funny thing is though, the federal government and a lot of other organizations on the left are doing so at the expense of their present constituents. Bud Light's a classic case of this, right? Who is the average individual that drinks Bud Light? Probably not your local slam poetry hipster lesbian basket weaver. Well, Bud Light let the equity officer run the show, and this is what you get. It turns out that actually catering to your audience is a better business move. So my honest answer to your question is stupid decisions. When you put your eggs in the wrong basket, they're going to get crushed.
Look, I'm old Cajun from South Louisiana, and I'm gonna tell you something about the people down here. We got a lot of rural people here, a lot of rural people all over the state of Louisiana, and they like their beer. I can't tell you what another group of people like, but this is old country folks. They get up, they work hard, they feed their families, they go to work, they come home, they want to relax, they drink a beer. The weekends, maybe they drink a little bit more than they should. But what I'm saying, that's the average beer drinker. That's why they're getting a lot of just totally unbelievable backlash or whatever you want to call it, is because they are tired of watching. My question is this going to be what the American people are going to have to do Is this going to be what the American people are going to have to do to stop this in its tracks? Or are we've went so far already, there is no backing up?
Well, that's what we're deciding right now as a society. So you've seen this with Disney, you've seen this with the M&M Corporation, you've seen this with Apple and Microsoft a little bit. Google is starting to experience this as well. These corporations that have tried something woke, and then it comes out just how discordant it is with society at large. Like you said, your old South Louisiana boys. In my case, it'd be Midwestern roofers who get off a hot roof and maybe they want an ice cold beer at the end of the day. They aren't looking to have some transgender influencer talk to them from the bathtub. That's the last thing on their mind. Well, some of these corporations have started to realize that, to use the Daily Wire's phrase, when you go woke, you go broke.
Yeah.
However, once you've hired the equity officer, they don't go quietly. These are the individuals that will get on Twitter and will scream and say they're a victim of oppression and racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia and whatever other $5 word they've invented in the last 3 weeks. And so a lot of these corporations are currently weighing whether they want the profits or whether they want the bad press. Now, if I'm running a business, I would want to feed my family and my employees and grow the business. Sure. But it seems like a lot of these corporations haven't quite decided yet.
Well, I think what happens too, you just mentioned about all these younger people moving in, they live in a different world than the one I grew up in. And now they're putting their influence on these people that ought to be looking and say, well, that's not what they're trying to push. That's not the people who buy our products. And it's not enough of them to make a difference. That's what I don't understand. If I was corporate, I'd say, look, we're running a company. We're not getting into all the politics. This is who we are. We sell to everybody, and we're not making it a big deal, but we're not going all out and all in on something that everybody knows is an outright lie. Everybody knows it's an outright lie. Now, some of them choose not to, it is, and you can talk about the Bible and anything else. Some people choose not to ever worry about the truth. This is their agenda. Here's what they want. Truth be damned. And so if you're head of a corporation, why don't you be the crowd that says, look, get away from me with all this. Here's who we are. And if you fire them, they're going to beat you up on social media anyway. Social media is the death knell now to almost everything, and it really shouldn't be like that.
Right. And this is one of the things that a lot of individuals are starting to figure out, that when someone, reaches out and says, well, if you don't support this, then you're insert blankety blank here, whatever bad name they want to call you. The proper response is not to say, well, no, I'm not, and then try to desperately explain how you're not racist or homophobic or, again, whatever word you want to use. The proper response is to look at them and say, I don't care. I don't care that you, at your first convenience, are resorting to calling me the gravest evil ever because you're not serious. You're not an adult. You're a child who screams when they don't get their way. And I think that Americans responding in this way are, by and large, a happier people.
Let me, Tony, I got to tell you a story. I've had to deal with this because of my talk.
I love a good story.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been in a radio business. I'm syndicating in Louisiana, and I've had that happen many a times because of my stance. So I'll get somebody on the air, and it doesn't happen much, but it's happened. And the first thing they'll do is call me a racist. So here's how I learned to handle it. I said, tell you what. And they want to talk. No. Let's go back to this comment you made. And what I do is I say, now here's what we're going to do. It ain't a game. You accuse me of an outright lie, a damn lie. Mm-hmm. So we're going to deal with the damn lie before you're going to talk anything else. Here's what you're going to do. You call me a racist. Now I want you to prove it. You're on my radio program. Okay. I got 60, 70,000 listeners. If you prove today I'm a racist, I'm getting off the mic. I'm out of here. I'm done. All you have to do is prove that I'm a racist. And every time they spit all over themselves. Every single time they spit on themselves. My favorite one, Tony, one guy said, well, all you do is talk in code words. I said, code words?
The dog whistle argument.
So this is what he did. I said, code words. I said, okay, I'm going to give you the code. Tell me what it says. I went, what did I say? He said, I don't know what you said. I said, no. I said, so that was my code and you didn't know what I said? How you know I didn't call you a name? I don't know what you said. I said, you know why? Here we are talking about something stupid, which is almost dumber than calling me a racist. Okay? And I'm proving a point. And so before it's over, I hang up and go, you lost. You didn't prove the point. You had a chance in my audience to prove I was a racist. So I understand the dogma of what some of these people will do. I'm used the example you just used. I didn't run and hide and go, oh, no, I'm not. Please don't call me a racist. I said, prove it. And they literally spit on themselves and they have nothing to say. And at the end of the conversation, sometimes they say, well, I probably ought to not call you a racist. And I said, no, you ought to not call anybody racist. Most people don't even know what that is anymore. It's just a word they grab when they can't win the argument. Same thing with gender. Same thing with all other stuff.
And I think that's one of the reasons that this group is targeting children in their messaging. Because when you tell a group of children that the quote unquote other side out there is evil, is racist, is a bunch of Nazi fascists who want to commit genocide, these children respond in the way that someone hearing something for the first time about genocide would respond, often in a very defensive manner that can, in a mob situation, turn violent. We saw this in Ohio when a student was beaten to death on a playground for not pledging allegiance to Black Lives Matter. We saw this in, of course, in Nashville and also in Colorado, in which the police stopped, in which individuals sought out Christians for this trans retribution or trans vengeance. That's why that kind of language is dangerous. And that's one of the reasons that I believe that individuals attempt to use that strong reactive language. There's no substance to it, so they have to make it as reactive as possible.
Yeah, and I just decided, Tony, that I wasn't gonna back down. If I said something that was wrong, I would apologize. I'm trying.
They don't want an apology. They want to bury you.
No, well, they're not gonna bury me unless they can bury me. I had a lady call a program one time. And she got on the phone. God bless her. It was an older Black lady, and I didn't realize she was in the community, and she accuses everybody of racist. And she calls me up one day and she said, "Does that radio station know what you're saying?" I said, "Ma'am." I said, "Do they know what you're saying on the air?" I said, "Ma'am, I don't know if they know or not. I don't know who listens to me." And she said, "Well, you, sir, just made a racist comment about because you said that guy." And I don't know if it was talking about Obama or what it was. She was freaking out. She said, "I'm reporting you." I said, would you like for my producer to find the number to who you're going to report it to? We can look it up on the internet and I'll give it to you. You can call them right now. And of course, she went away. She was going to sue me. She was going to the radio station to talk about me. I said, go for it, ma'am. I said, it's not a big deal with me because I didn't say anything wrong. Now, Tony, let me say this. Does that mean I can't say something wrong? No. No, I didn't say that because I can make a mistake like anybody else. But this, we're back on race, but let's go back to what we were talking about with the gender. This is ungodly. There's no science to it. And I just wonder when the churches and the people in the Democrat Party with the Republicans decide, look, this is enough of this. We've had enough. Because right now, I see the fight starting to build a little bit, and it's almost like they want to fight because it divides the country.
Well, this is one of the interesting things when you actually take a look at the inside of what was the traditional Democrat wing bloc. So you had a lot of Rust Belt 90s labor Democrats from the Appalachians and the Midwest and the South. You also had a lot of Southern and inner city Black communities. You also had a lot of Midwestern and Southern Hispanic communities. And it turns out that a lot of traditional families that are often found in Rust Belt white families and in inner city and suburban Black families, and usually very Catholic Hispanic families, they don't really go for a lot of, as you said, ascientific and abiblical nonsense regarding sex and gender. They think it's perverse. Their pastors preach against it on Sundays. And I've said it before, and it's amazing to watch it happen in small ways across the country, getting larger. A lot of these traditional Democrat groups are no longer staying with a party that has sacrificed what is to many individuals the core of their family, their faith, their family, their community, at the altar of what? That some guy dressed in drag reading to their children? That's not what they want.
I'll say it again, Tony. Tony, Kinnett, my special guest with the investigative columnist with the Daily Signal. He's also with our good friends at the Heritage Foundation. You know, if somebody wants to do this and they get of age and that's what you want to do, I could care less. I do care, but I could care less. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'll treat you.
I don't advise it, but if that's what you want to do with your time and your money, you're an adult.
But here's where I take a stand. Teaching kids 5 and 6 and 8 and 13 and 14 years old. And by the way, under 12, most of them could get 13. They could care less what sex is anyway. Teaching them in drag queens and going to libraries and doing all this stuff is where we have to draw the line for our children. But if you're a parent and you think that's so good for your children to go for this, then you can go do it. Don't put it on these kids in these schools and things of that nature and teach this as being something that is right. God says it's wrong. Science says it's wrong. Man should step up with God and science on this. We know when we had COVID, everything was science. There was no science behind the mask, but you had to get it. You know what I'm saying? And things of that nature. So that's where I think we have to really step up and say enough's enough.
I think you're right. And I've heard it said this way, and it's really stuck with me since. That as an adult, you're more than welcome to go have, 1 drink of alcohol or 1,000 drinks of alcohol. Go smoke a whole pack, a whole carton of cigarettes if you want. But there is no rational adult who would hand a child a cigarette or a drink of alcohol or would drive 120 down the highway with their kid in the back seat. There is no reason, therefore, that if we don't allow those kinds of child abuse, why would we allow children to be pumped full of dangerous cancer-causing hormones or allow doctors to cut off children's body parts in some effort to appear, socially affirmative? That's a horrible way to run a society. Children should be protected from abuse, and that is just another kind of abuse.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Tony Kinnett, thank you so much, sir. I am hoping to have you on. I hope to get you on my radio program soon as well, but you've been a blessing, and thank you so much.
I appreciate it, sir. God bless.
Thank you. God bless. All right, folks, don't forget, need you to subscribe. Need you to tell people to subscribe to the Moon Griffon podcast. We just need the subscriptions to keep going up. We do appreciate you spending time with us, but we need you to subscribe. My name is Moon Griffon. Love you. God bless you. And thank you so much for tuning in.